Stephen Bertolino. Stephen Bertolino. There he is, getting a lot of FaceTime now. Look at what he said. Finally got something here. And I know a lot of you were watching that video. I hope you did. Go watch it. Share that one so people understand, because I think this is the first time we've gotten an admission that the Laundries knew.
Chris and Roberta knew that their son Brian was grieving. They knew he was so upset. And
grieving about what? Gabby still hadn't been found. What were they grieving about? I don't think he was supposed to say that, guys. I don't think he was supposed to say that. He hasn't said it anywhere else. Said it here, and this reporter... That's why I hate the news, guys. I hate the news. I'm sorry. I don't even know who this is. I don't even want to call her out. But she just clearly wasn't listening. She's clearly not paying attention. Clearly doesn't know the case. How did you not jump on that? Grieving what? Now, Bertolino probably would have caught him. He would have given the same answer he's given everybody else. We're not at liberty to talk about that right now. Blah, 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 blah. What were they grieving about? What was Brian grieving about? I'm going to play this clip a bunch today. Watch this again.
That he may hurt himself.
Chris and Roberta knew that their son Brian was grieving. They knew he was so upset. And, they just couldn't control that he was leaving, and he left. He walked out the door. And Chris has said to me, I wish I could have stopped him, but I couldn't.
In East Islip.
And that's it. That's how they end the story. And then they didn't even they're distraught. The parents are distraught is what the headline is. Idiots. You guys had such a major exclusive, and they don't even know how to market their own news. I mean, these people all need to hire me. It's how do you have that? How do you get that soundbite and not only not hear it in the moment, but then not hear it in post? I just don't get it. There's the mass media for you. It blows my mind. So when I heard that, I was like, what? And a couple of you sent it to me, too. I great minds, so thanks to everybody who sent it to me. I got a few of you emailed this over.
That he may hurt himself.
Chris and Roberta knew that their son Brian was grieving. They knew he was so upset.
About what? About what? At that point, he had come home with the van, and we were missing Gabby, and we didn't know where she was. And the Petitos were trying to find out where she was, and they were pleading and calling the Laundries to see what happened. At that point, what was he grieving?
Been identified. Tell us what you've learned.
Just a short while ago, I confirmed with Chris and Roberta Laundrie that representatives from the Northport Police Department visited their home and advised them that the remains were positively identified as those of Brian.
Have they been asked to identify the remains in person?
No, they have not. We had previously provided items for DNA testing and confirmation, and my understanding is that is what was used to identify the remains.
Now, a couple of things. He's going to get angrier. This is how it starts. And yes, he does sound a little bit like my cousin Vinny. I know a lot of you have sent that to me, and I'm not going to lie, he does.
Under the circumstances, I think, first of all, this is difficult news for any parent to receive. How are your clients doing?
I've been using the word distraught for the last couple of days now, and, they're extremely upset. And for some unknown reason, there are still people outside of their home, yelling and screaming and causing a ruckus, which, any parent that's grieving the loss of a child should not have to deal with that.
This has been a difficult few weeks for so many families, the Petitos as well. Do your clients understand the focus and attention on them?
Of course they understand it. And it's been, how shall I say, it's been very difficult to bear.
Many have asked why they got a lawyer, why they hired you.
And?
He just goes, and?
I'm sorry, you cut out there. I'm going to ask that again. Why did your clients lawyer up?
You used the term lawyer up. I've been a friend of Chris Laundrie for over 25 years. And when I got a phone call from Chris advising me that he was getting some inquiries from law enforcement, he asked me if I could assist him. And of course, I was more than glad to do so.
That's where I want to stop first, because that does not answer the question. And you can tell by how defensive he gets at the question. He's not very good at sort of hiding his anger and frustration, and you can tell this is a clear sore spot in the defense. Why did he lawyer up? There were detectives asking. You mean there were detectives asking where his fiance was, and that he came home without her? Okay, sure, that's true. I guess that could have been true. The missing person report. I mean, we could actually probably get a timeline of when they lawyered up and when the authorities actually were, the authorities were getting involved. However, if you didn't do anything, why would you lawyer up? is the constant question, right? He's not answering the question because he can't. He can't really answer the question. And good for, as Marnie, I think here, News Nation, she did good on this. She kept her cool and she pushed him. And that was a great question because well, I still don't know the answer, even though he just gave us an answer, his non-answer lawyer answer, because some authorities came and I've been a family friend, and they I mean, sure, this guy does seem like a guy who's like, don't say anything, I'm gonna cover it all now, so don't talk. But that doesn't answer the question.
At any point in the last 5 weeks, have you spoken with Brian Laundrie?
Yes, I spoke to Brian Laundrie on September 12th and September 13th.
And what can you share about that conversation?
Not much. Any conversation I had with Brian Laundrie is privileged. I can tell you that
he's not allowed to say. I mean, that makes sense. We can't be mad at him for that. That is a right we must defend to our death. And every criminal has the opportunity and right to counsel. We have to be okay with that, guys. Don't be mad at that. And so that makes sense. He's not going to tell us that, but then here we go.
Chris and Roberta have been worried about Brian Laundrie since Brian went out for the hike on that Monday. And, from there's been a lot of speculation.
So they were worried about him when he went for that hike. That's weird. Remember that, because they were apparently only worried about him when he went on the hike.
A lot of accusations, a lot of news outfits have proliferated that misinformation, and I firmly believe that's why these protesters are out there, because this has just become a circus, which there was no need for it to be that way.
See how he deflected the question and took it straight to the protesters, which was like way further along, way further. That's a trick, guys, and it's a trick when you answer questions to, answer the question by pivoting cleverly and quickly pivoting to the topic you actually want to talk about. And right now he's trying to play defense and saying, look at these protesters that are out there yelling at them after my son died. And I'll be honest, I don't support that. He's right. It's the one point that he has that he's right about. And you may disagree with me, but I'm sorry. No one should be out there screaming you're going to hell right now after they lost the son. It's completely ridiculous. I'm not going to stand for it. Don't like it. But he's pivoting because he can use that right now because it's the only thing he's got right now for sure. He's got empathy. He's got people who are having some compassion he can win him over, right? He can win him over right now by saying, listen, instead of answering the question about, why'd you lawyer up and all these fair questions, it's, well, that's why they're protest. Why are these protesters here? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. There's so many conspiracy theories. Blah, blah, blah. He was upset when he left. He's creating a narrative, so pay attention.
Did you ever see Brian Laundrie in person when he returned to Florida?
I did not.
And when was the last time his parents saw him before he went hiking?
The morning he left for the hike.
Have you believed over the last...
Which, by the way, that date changed a few times. Let's not forget that. They changed the day of when he left and all that stuff, remember?
Few weeks that he was alive?
We were hopeful that he was alive because we had not heard from him and there was no sign of him after all of the search efforts that law enforcement had made. Obviously, each passing day and week, we understood that there might be a grim reality coming in the future. Those were confirmed today.
The way he answered that was just so unemotional. It's so weird. Yeah, no, we were hoping, we were hopeful, we were hopeful of the things, and then the grim reality was today. It's just such a weird, and she's going to call it out too, because later in the interview, she's like, you knew him, right? You were a family friend.
Did Brian's parents share with you, did he share a plan with them?
A plan for what?
A plan for what he was going to do.
His plan was to go out for a hike and absorb the fresh air, is what I understand.
Was Brian in communication with his parents after he left the house on cell phone or in any other way?
No, he was not. I believe that was clarified, that Brian had left his cell phone at home.
Did Brian have any way to communicate?
And yet, excuse me, Monty, and yet the news outlets, indeed Fox News just yesterday, had an anchor and pundits on their air setting forth how the Laundrie parents and myself were communicating with burner phones with Brian over the last several weeks.
Well, I think there's a lot of
questions.
questions. There's a lot of questions that everyone has. So my question to you is, have you communicated with Brian at any point?
She's trying to keep it on pack, and he's getting distracted because he's going off on the conspiracy theory that the news has been saying there's burner phones. I mean, show me which news outlet. I mean, YouTubers? Joseph Morris? Is he using Joseph Morris's news? Like, what? Who is that? Were there? I mean, there was a lot of speculation about burner phones. Of course, there were, and I think with fair reason. But now he's going off on this. You guys are conspiracy. He has burner phones and blah, blah, blah. He's using the media's circus to deflect and distract from the major questions.
After you spoke with him on the phone on the 12th and 13th?
No, I haven't.
Did you know where he was?
I knew that he went to the reserve.
Let's talk about the reserve.
He's being very careful in these questions too, and good on Marnie because she's asking very pointed specifics and going back, so we can try and catch him, right? And so far, so good.
A lot of people can't wrap their minds around the fact that the reserve had been searched week after week, was reopened to the public, and then less than 24 hours, the parents went out there. What did they share with you about their reasoning for going out there and why they knew specifically where to go?
You know, Marnie, as I've stated several times yesterday and now throughout today, you know, it's not about knowing specifically where to go. The park was just recently opened. I believe it was Tuesday or Wednesday that the park was open. Chris and Roberta wanted to go in the park again to search for their son. Specifically where to go was start at the beginning. And as has been, how shall I say, confirmed, both with a news reporter and with the police department and the FBI being present, they started at the beginning of the preserve. It just so happened that that's where Brian was. So my thought would be anybody who's questioning that, it's not too bright.
Well,
also, I've seen the comments, Glitter Diva. You're like, oh, well, no, if the person is going to have a crime, they can tell the authorities. But the crime had occurred. Once a crime occurs, you can tell them I murdered somebody, and you're not obligated to tell anybody. You only have to tell if you're going to do it again. If the lawyer feels like you're going to do it again. That's not the case here. So, of course, that lawyer privilege is safe. When you are charged with a crime and you go in and tell them I did a crime, it's completely locked in the vault, Glitter Diva. Just so we're clear. That's how that works. But
questioning that, it's not too bright. So my thought would be anybody who's questioning that, it so happened that that's where Brian was. So with the police department and the FBI being present, they started at the beginning of the preserve.
This part's interesting.
It just so happened that that's where Brian was. So my thought would be anybody who's questioning that, it's not too bright.
I mean, so he's calling us not bright because of clearly they started at the trail and walked in and found it. I mean, you guys, we're not bright. We're not bright at all. How dare we think that there might be more to this? Ridiculous.
Well, clarify that, because I think no one has the answers here. Certainly the public doesn't. You have more answers than most. We assume that the parents knew more than we do. So clarify what the public doesn't understand about what's going on.
What the public doesn't understand, I don't understand. You have a trailhead. The trailhead marks the beginning of a trail. You don't jump from the sky and land in the middle of the preserve. You start at the trailhead. That's where the parents started. The parents walked into the park from the entrance to the park or the trailhead. They went about a mile or so, and that's where they found the items and the remains. What is so difficult to...
Did you hear him say that? That's where they found the items and the remains. I thought the cops found it. There's so much here. He's just over-talking and doing so much. It's so confusing. Who found the remains? What? Wait, they found the remains? I mean, I assume he's just that, they... meaning the whole everybody. I assume what he means there, but he's so quick to sort of explain it. This idea that, they went in, and found it at the trailhead. They went and they found it. I mean, he was going off on a lot of detours in that trailhead. He wasn't just walking on a trail. He was going out into little specific parts. And I would argue back to Stephen Bertolino, as someone who lives in Florida, has walked many trailheads and many paths, it's really epically long and big, and you'd have to go through so many brush on the sides to find what you're looking for. So, look, I don't know exactly where they found it, but when we see that footage of him going in and seemingly gets away from certain people, it would be very easy to have planted some things in some of that brush. Remember where, because you kept your pace and knew where. So this idea that I'm dim because these parents who have lawyered up and said nothing for so long and then found the Mustang, all this stuff. We're not dim. These are fair, legit questions, and he doesn't want us to ask them because he's like, "You're crazy. This is the reason. Leave us alone."
To understand about that.
Well, I think it's hard to grapple with the fact that the reserve had been searched so extensively by FBI professionals over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and they hadn't come across anything. And then all of a sudden, we have several items and human remains. I think that's what people aren't fully understanding.
I think it's rational.
The timing of that.
So once again, I don't understand what the public doesn't understand.
Well, of course
Everyone from the FBI to local enforcement to news reporters to the Laundrie family has confirmed that area of the park was underwater. I am told that it was waist deep at some times. So from 4 to 5 weeks ago being completely underwater, when the search teams went through there, what did they expect to find? Now that the water...
a dry bag floating, for one, right? Correct me, chat. Those dry bags would have air and float. They wouldn't sink to the bottom of the thing, right? You'd think with drones and everything else going around, and still, they have had dogs near the water, and if there were remains and he was eaten or whatever happened, wouldn't there would be there'd be stuff there, guys. There'd be a dry bag that'd be floating. How did Chris Laundrie find it first? Give me a break. I'm sorry, no, not buying it.
Water has receded. The woods off the trail are more accessible.
I also want more proof of how much water, because look, I don't like going down too many conspiracy holes and cover-ups. However, what a brilliant way to cover this up. Oh yeah, it was just the water. Because to me, I want to blame the police. Why the hell didn't you find this? You guys idiot. Well, it was underwater. Was it? Can we prove that? Can we actually see how much water was there? Do we have overhead shots of this area that can say, oh yeah, that was totally underwater and now it's not? I mean, I'm here in Florida. It takes a while for that stuff to recede down. I'm not a biological, environmental expert on this, but I want some proof to this before we just say, because even at times it was waist deep. He's throwing in this language to make it like fact when I don't know if that's fact.
It's not very difficult because it's very simple, and the public doesn't understand simplicity or the truth. You want to make something of it. And when I say you, I don't mean you particular. I mean the public.
Yeah, us.
So walk us through the phone call that you got from the Laundries. Was this Tuesday night? They said, we want to go back out to the reserve. What was that conversation like, and what did they tell you?
So to be clear, I talked with the Laundries at least twice a day for the last month. And when I spoke with them on Tuesday evening, Chris informed me that he wanted to go to the reserve on Wednesday with Roberta. They wanted to know if I thought that was a good idea. We talked about it. I said it absolutely is a good idea, and it's fine, you should go. But are you concerned about being followed by the press? They indicated to me that they were concerned about the press, but they were willing to deal with it as they've been dealing with it. I said, I think it's a good idea to notify law enforcement, and I did so through a text message to my contact at the Northport Police Department. The responsive text message was a very short, thank you for the heads up. Wednesday morning, when Chris and Roberta were at the preserve at 7 a.m., law enforcement was there, respectfully, to accompany them. And what I was told afterwards, that their main purpose or concern was that the press didn't harass the Laundries through the preserve.
Did they ask you to contact the police?
No, they did not. Obviously, it was something that I suggested, and it's a good thing that we did. It's imagine what the public would be thinking if the police weren't there. Imagine what the public would be thinking if a lot of this wasn't caught on video. And still, with an independent reporter and a representative of law enforcement from a local agency, a representative from the FBI being present.
I mean, that's a lie. They weren't there the whole time. We have video evidence that they weren't always there. They had plenty of time by themselves to go find objects that they could have dropped way earlier. So I get offended when he keeps calling us dumb, when it's like, no, you're trying to deflect. You're a lawyer. You're allowed to lie. Don't you dare call me dumb. It's just, it's an aggressive tactic he's using that turns me off and makes me more suspicious because he doesn't want the truth. He wants you just to believe him. But dude, you don't even know the whole truth. You weren't there. You know what he told you.
And you still have these nonsensical people putting forth ideas that certain items were planted.
Right.
You've called that hogwash. You've called the suggestion that items were planted were hogwash. Why is that?
It's funny. He's just trying to talk over because he's pissed because he has what's interesting here, and I'm going to play this in a second, but he doesn't want the narrative. He wants to control the narrative here, and props to Marnie for not fighting back and getting her word in as she should. It's her show, and she's pushing back, and she's being polite. She's not being aggressive. He is, and he's about to get really aggressive. But this idea that keeps pushing and telling us we're dumb. Guys, these theories are dumb. There's no way. Bullshit. There's totally a way.
I'm sorry, we were speaking over one another. Can you repeat that?
Yes, of course. You have suggested that any claims that the Laundries planted items in the reserve is hogwash. Why?
Marnie, I thought I was very clear in just explaining to you why. If you've got the FBI, the local PD, an independent news reporter, all there at the same time seeing the same thing, you've got quote-unquote surveillance of the Laundries 24/7 by protesters and people of the press. When did you think these items were planted?
Before, when I wish you would have said it. When the Mustang was there, they had plenty of time.
And do you really think the Laundries had skeletal remains of their son?
No.
You know, in a plastic bag and brought them to the preserve?
Who's saying that? I think people think they faked the skeletal remains.
Do you realize how ludicrous that is? How aggravating, how maddening it is to even hear those things? And the fact that it's being put out there by the press as well? That's where my level of frustration and anger is coming from. Maybe somebody with a platform should step up and say, hey, knock it off. This is just silly. So if I'm the only one who has to say that this is hogwash because I didn't want to say the word bullshit, then I'm going to say it. It's bullshit. And I'm sorry if John Q. Public doesn't get that.
Yeah, John Q. Public. I'm sorry if you don't get it. What's funny is he pivoted to... He is smart. He's smarter than I think a lot of people want to give him credit for. He pivoted.
Let me ask.
He pivoted because the question was, did they plant evidence? Could they have? And the truth is they could have. They absolutely could have. And they would have done it probably earlier, right? And so that is telling to me. And he doesn't want us to think that. He doesn't want us to have that in our minds at all, right? And so he's trying to pivot and distract us and deflect by saying, well, yeah, because they faked the remains? Come on. He jumped, right? He moved the goalpost. The question was, did they plant evidence? And no, then he pivoted and answered the question. They think we got a fake Brian Laundrie skull. This is ludicrous. And the truth is, guys, that's ludicrous. He's right there. So he's using the little points that he has. He's using the empathy. He's using the crazy theories that some YouTubers are still going with. I think it's unlikely, very, very unlikely. But he's smartly using what he can and constantly pivoting to them to deflect, which to me is a sign of he's playing defense and he's hiding something. So yeah, to answer the question, which he didn't answer, yeah, of course they could have planted something. Now, Marnie's being a reporter and being fair and not trying to, but I wish she would have asked, well, could they could have planted something earlier. I mean, I think it's unfair to call we don't know. That's why we're asking you, sir. Like, it would have been nice to really put him, against the rails even harder to say, well, it's kind of unfair to say we're stupid. There are opportunities, sir. Because there were.
Ask you, Mr. Bertolino, from the very beginning, the public has been watching this case unfold, starting with Gabby's disappearance. I think everyone understands your client's right to stay silent, to not talk. That silence does not presume guilt. However, in the court of public opinion, the last few weeks have been difficult. Legally, I understand that argument, but ethically, did they ever consider reaching out to the Petitos, reaching out to law enforcement in help finding Gabby?
Unfortunately, Marnie, I can't have that conversation with you at this time.
Why is that?
I just can't. It's not the appropriate time to have that conversation.
But it's an ethical conversation, not just for the parents of Brian, but for you as an attorney. At any point when they were searching for Gabby, did you feel the need, compelled to help?
I can tell you that at this moment in time, Chris and Roberta Laundrie just learned that their son's remains were identified. He is now no longer with them. At some point in time in the future, there may be more information as what I felt, what the Laundries felt, what we, quote, ethically, thought about the case. Now is not the time to do that. You've asked me the question 2 or 3 times. And I'm going to respectfully tell you again, it's not the time to discuss that.
It's not the time to discuss that. Why do you think, guys? My opinion, again, speculation, because they're still working on their story. Now, they might have told the FBI something, and they have to obviously tell the same story. But I'm sure they were very limited in what they told them, and now they're going to have to probably get a little bit more specific at some point. They need to figure out what the best thing is. What do we know? What do we have? Let's get all our of course, they're not going to tell that story yet, because we still need to know why. We know he's grieving. We didn't get to ask why is he grieving, but he did reveal he was grieving. Grieving about what? Because the relationship was over. What did Brian tell the parents? It's the most important thing we need to know. And I don't know if we're ever going to really know that answer, because I doubt they're going to come clean and say it. So it's frustrating, but he's pleading the fifth, if you will, is what he's doing there.
Have the Laundries reached out to the Petito family at all, and has the Petito family reached out to them in recent days?
The Laundrie family has not reached out to the Petitos, and to my knowledge, the Petitos have not reached out to the Laundries.
What are the Laundries' plans now?
At the moment, they're going to grieve their son.
And then what?
Thanks, Marnie.
Marnie, I don't mean to be rude, and I know you have a job to do.
But
they were just told less than a half hour ago that their son is deceased. Do you think that they really have thoughts on anything other than that their son is no longer with them?
yes.
No, and I respect their
do think
privacy,
so.
and I can't begin to imagine the pain that they're going through. I just know that so many of us have questions about what has happened, not just to Gabby, but to Brian. The nation has been watching this search for him, what turned into a manhunt across the country. And so we are curious. We want answers. You're the closest to the family, and I want to know how they're doing. I want to know what their plans are.
Marnie, I don't have any information on the plans that the Laundries have. And I want to tell you, because I've got to stop myself, I'm taking some of my anger and frustration out on you. As you may know, I knew Brian Laundrie since he was an infant, since he was a small child. This is hard. I shed a tear or two today as well. I've shared that with the Laundries.
I've shed a tear or two. I told the parents that I shed a tear or two. Who does that? I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be so judgy, but it's kind of what we do here. When you shed a tear or two to the mourning parents, would you be like, guys, I shed a tear or two, just 2. It might have been 1, might have been 2. It was either 1 or 2, but not like full on, but like 2 little teardrops came out today, guys. I just wanted you guys to know, as your lawyer and family friend, I did shed a tear or 2. Is it just me, or is that weird? That's not how, it's personally just not how I would have phrased it. I feel like I wouldn't have offered that up. They would have just seen it, because I would have been crying, and I would have been crying. Absolutely. I cried this morning when I saw this picture. For the nephew, I feel real emotion in this case. And, as the family friend of knowing this kid since he was an infant, he had a tear or 2.
The fact that the public is continuing this nonsensical, we're hiding him in the beginning, we've fed him food, We communicated with him.
I was so, I was so hoping he was going to the bunker. He didn't go there. It was so, we were hiding him food. He was so close. Underground bunkers. I wanted him to say it so bad he didn't do it.
Platform, because you hear that if you have a platform, you should use it for the good. You respect that they have the right to remain silent. But there are people in your position, maybe not you, but in your position, that never once pushed back on these so-called experts and pundits who did nothing but say, this is immoral, this is unethical. Somewhere along the line, somebody with a platform, someone in your position should have said, hey, you know what? Back off. This is America, and in our system of justice, they have the right to remain silent. So I'm kind of a little perturbed that now I have to go back and explain how we didn't plant remains and personal items in a preserve.
Yeah, you do.
When the upper echelons of law enforcement is telling everyone this is legit by their actions, by their words, and yet we have to now.
When did the authorities, the upper echelon authorities, say this is legit? I mean, I guess the bones are legit, but who said they didn't say nothing was planted? Come on, dude. Stop putting words in their mouths.
Go back and somehow educate John Q. Public?
I love that he calls us John Q. Public. Dude, lawn alert, Bertolino, Northport police is already coming at you saying you're lying and that they didn't do the things you said. So stop putting words in their mouth because they're going to probably get even more pissed at you and then they're going to sue.
And you guys perpetrate this. You put it forth. And you
well, I'm going to stop you right there.
Thank you, Marnie. Here he is trying to attack her again. You do this, Marnie. All you do is talk about how Marnie hasn't done that. He's just out there trying to scream at the Joseph Morrises and the horrible TikTokers that are doing terrible stuff. And the reality is, because the parents are seeing it, because that's what people watch that shit more than the news. Let's be honest. But here Marnie is like, no more.
I have said a number of times that the Laundrie parents have every right to remain silent, whether the public agrees with that right or not. But our search is for answers, and that is where it will continue to lie. Answers not only in what happened to your client, Brian Laundrie, and what happens with his parents moving forward, but also what happened to Gabby.
Facts.
And there are many who are concerned that we may never know what happened in this case, given what has transpired today.
As I've said now for probably the fourth or fifth time, today is not the day to discuss that.
He's basically like, since you're slow, Marnie, I'll say it for a fifth time. Today is not the day.
You know what I want to ask you? Mr. Bertolino, you mentioned that you have known Brian for years. That is one thing that we have not been able to get much on in the last month and a half. Who is Brian Laundrie? What kind of person was he? What do you know about him that you're willing to share?
Marnie, I know him as the...
Marnie, you dumb cow. Don't you just feel like you'd say something like that? Sorry, speculation. Marnie, you dumb cow. How much longer do I have to talk to you, woman? Are you even listening to my ears, you stupid woman? I would love to hear him unleashed. Because, this guy's pissed.
Child of a friend of mine. I didn't go to school with him. I didn't hang out with him. He's 30 years my junior. So to ask me what type of person he is,
it's such a stupid question.
I'm sure he was a good kid, just like every parent says they could.
Hold on. No. Marnie's got to be a pro. I don't got to be a pro. You just brought it up, you scumbag. You brought it up to make sympathy for you. I've known this boy for a while and everyone blah, blah, blah. So then she takes the bait and then she asks, so, all right, you brought it up, sir. Tell us about this boy that meant that you shed a tear or two. Well, I know it was only one or two, but tell us what you think because you're so emotional about it. Tell us about this boy you grew up with and knew. And now he's got to get... Well, Marnie, you dumb cow. I know. I'm a grown-up. He's a kid. I don't really know him. Jesus.
Their kid is a good kid. When all is said and done, I'm pretty much... how shall I say, not going to discuss anything further other than what type of child Brian was, other than to say, Brian is no longer with us. The family is mourning, and I would hope that we could, let them mourn, let them grieve, and maybe somebody besides myself could come out and say, hey, protesters, go away tonight.
I did that. So, Bertolino, want to come on my show? I've been doing that loud and proud, tweeting it, videoing it, I know that Jonathan Lee Riches is very litigious, and I've avoided him at all costs for that reason. But I'm sorry, Riches, get the hell off that lawn. It's time for you to go. You guys are being a-holes. Stop protesting.
Could you do that?
I did it.
I just have a couple more questions. Have you spoken with Cassie?
I love how she's like, I'm not giving you anything, sir, you jackass. She's like, she's not moving an inch. She's like, okay, whatever. So, question, have you talked to Cassie?
Not today, but I have spoken with her and Jim recently, yes.
Do you plan to continue to represent the family moving forward, and do you see a need for that?
I will be representing the family as long as it's necessary.
Anything else you'd like to share and clarify about what has happened?
No, I just want to apologize to you as an individual for my anger and frustration, but I've been dealing with this all day, and I've put out some statements that this is nonsense. And
why aren't you believing my statements? I'm the lawyer of the people no one believe, but you're supposed to believe me, even though I'm legally allowed to lie to you. I mean, Marnie, can you understand why I'm mad at you?
To hear it come from a platform like yours, that the question is even posed. I get that the internet is a whole different world, that the Twitter world and the people who play in that world, I understand that they may have a need for this. But
how dare you, Marnie?
Respectable organizations.
That's the most, my God. You all respectable organizations. You are just, the way you've been covering these two Utes this whole time has been so unbelievable.
The same thing I find troubling.
Oh.
What do you find so troubling about the public's curiosity and search for answers?
Curiosity and search for answers is one thing.
Okay, we're allowed to do that, so remember that.
Coming up with completely
curious,
off the charts,
curious,
in the scheme of reality,
curious.
Propositions of literally planting evidence,
which they absolutely could have done prior to everyone knowing. So, not that unrealistic.
Planting articles.
Again, could have planted articles when they left or got the Mustang. Brian could have planted them. Cassie could have planted them. I mean, am I crazy? Totally could have planted them.
Even planting the remains is just beyond, it's beyond compare. That's what I find troubling.
So just one more thing about that, and I promise I will let it go. Did your clients go out to the reserve prior to yesterday morning on their own at any time?
Great question, because and she didn't get specific on the early, but at any point, and it's a fair question.
Yes, they did. Back in early September, I shouldn't say early September, mid-September, which would have been the 14th and the 15th.
To do the Mustang.
They there with Brian or with authorities?
No, they were there on their own. That was the day after Brian had went for the hike and didn't come home.
Well, but we're the crazy ones with the theories. So they went without authorities or the press to find a car. Couldn't have planted evidence? Oh, guys, we're just dim. It's hogwash.
And what did they do there?
Yeah, thank you. Marty's good. I like her. I like Bravo.
They walked around the trails looking for Brian initially.
Oh, yeah. I'm see, I was getting red in the face. Oh, interesting. And no one was watching. There was no cameras then.
Is this when they picked up the car?
On the second day, they picked up the car, correct.
2 whole days to walk around the same place they just found him. That was underwater, apparently.
Did they find any items or anything that led them to believe that he was out there at that time?
Beside the car? No.
But impossible to have planted evidence, right, Bertolino? How dim are we? We're so stupid, aren't we, guys? Ugh, ludicrous.
All right, Mr. Bertolino, we appreciate your time. I know this is a difficult day for
Love it.
many,
Look at
including
him.
you.
Oh,
We
what a
thank you
way
for
to
giving
end that
that
interview. I love that she did it so classy, too. She did it in such a classy way. Where at the end of the interview, he's like, I'm sure that's one of those I would love to see after the Zoom, where afterwards it's like, thank you so much, Marnie. God damn it. Right? Is anyone feeling that energy? I feel like that's absolutely what happened at the end of that. Oh my God, they got it. That was that. Thank you, Marnie.
Just a moment to talk about it.
Marty, once again, I want to apologize to you because I don't need to take my frustration out on you.
But I do it all the time to everyone I know.
You are the first person I've spoken to since I've learned the news. And, you know, I'm upset. I'm angry. And for the last 4 hours, I've been dealing with, I have to just call it nonsense.
Nonsense. So that, you know, all the nonsense, grieving, all this grieving nonsense.
Well, I'd like to extend an invitation.
I love it. She doesn't even accept it. Did you notice Marnie's like, not going to say anything. Not going to acknowledge or accept your apology, sir.
To you to come back on when you're ready to share more, and also to Brian Laundrie's parents when they're ready.
Good enough, Marty. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Mr. Bertolino, we thank you.
Like, yeah, whatever. Bye. Good evening. See you later. I got to... Sorry, we got to laugh. I got to laugh. That's what I do. If you don't like it, get the hell out of here. Because that interview was crazy. That interview was crazy. What do you guys think? There's so much more. I'm gonna clip this portion of the show because I want I want you guys to see the full interview with my commentary. So hopefully that helps. We are gonna bring in Christopher Melcher in just a couple minutes to react to said interview, as well as Alec Baldwin. We're gonna talk about that story. We may take some of your calls. I got to get through some of your comments. We got so much more to do, but I do want to clip this portion as our main event for the show. So, if you're watching live, don't go anywhere. If you're watching the replay, eventually, after this is processed, you'll see the full thing there. You can always go to our members only tab, join. It's right next to subscribe, and you can always catch the replays whenever you want, or click on these videos when they're there. Thanks for watching.